to the 2024 State House District 24 debate hosted by the Bradley County Republican Party. Would also like to thank our partners at WCLE for live streaming on their Facebook page and mixtv.tv our debate tonight. Want to thank them for doing that. And we're going to get started. We had lots of questions submitted by the public. We want to get through as many of them as possible tonight. So, first of all, just want to introduce myself. I'm the current Bradley County Republican Party Chairman, Emily Beatty, and I'm joined tonight by Richard Burnett, the immediate past chair of the party, and David Benton, who is the treasurer of the Bradley County Republican Party. The three of us will serve as your moderators for tonight's debate. To start the debate, I would like, we started the debate with a coin toss, and Representative Kevin Raper won the coin toss. So he will be giving the first opening statement, and he will receive the first question. So again, the purpose of this debate is to inform the public and allow citizens to hear the stances, views, and plans of our two candidates for District 24. Our candidates are Representative Kevin Raper and challenger and former Bradley County School Board member Troy Weathers. All audience members have been asked to refrain from cheering, applause, and any noise making during the debate. Now for a quick review of the rules of the debate. Candidates will be given 2 minutes each to answer a question. Rebuttals will only be allowed by the moderators and will be 1 minute in length. Each candidate will only receive a maximum of 3 rebuttals during the debate. The timer will give a 10-second warning here on this box with the yellow light. When it turns red, that means your time is up. At the end of your time, the moderator will move on to the next question. We will start with opening statements. Representative Kevin Raper. Yes. You may start with your opening statement.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. And thank you to the Bradley County Cleveland GOP for hosting this event. I've been a part of many important issues and bills in the 2 years that I've been in Nashville. I always have gleaned on your insight and wisdom anytime that I make a decision. One of the things I'm most proud of in Nashville was helping to solve so many local issues that constituents might have. Some examples: Social Security, disability, TennCare, Medicare, employment issues, visa, passports, and there are many others that pop up. I'm so honored and grateful to District 24 for sending me to Nashville to represent your belief system. I plan on continuing to be a conservative Republican, and thanks for your attendance tonight.
Let me also thank the Republican Party for allowing us the opportunity to talk about who we are. I got to turn the mic on. When I was on the school board, we didn't have switches. It was automatic. Let me start over. Let me say thank you for allowing us to be here this evening, and thank you for the great turnout that we have. It's important that we know who represents us in Nashville. First, I'd like to thank my family for being here. My family don't follow me a whole lot in the political arena because they said I'm running for office. And I want to thank my wife, my 3 daughters, my 4 grandchildren. 2 of them are here. One of them's out in the hallway. She started cheering for me when y'all said my name, and they had to take her out. And then my other smallest grandson, he's with one of the other grandparents. The question today would be, why am I running? And I'm going to tell you something that I experienced last week that reminded me why I am a conservative Republican. I met some folks knocking on their door from California. And we all say, oh gosh, I hope they don't bring California politics to us. But let me tell you, one of the nicest folks I've ever met. And they were so determined to make sure that whoever wins this race is a conservative Republican and means it. They told me, Mr. Weathers, we lived out in California when times were tough and when the politics started going left and there was nothing they could do. And they said, that's when we finally decided that we have to go somewhere. And they chose Cleveland, Tennessee. And just so you know, I was very honored to speak to them because of the fact that they really energized me to remind me why I'm running. I'm running to protect what we have here in Cleveland. I'm running to make sure that Tennessee doesn't change the way we live and the way we think. So I look forward to the debate and the answers. Again, thank you again for being here.
Representative Raper, you have the first question. And the question is, define conservatism.
I think when conservatism, it's a belief system that should include but not be limited to low taxes, small government, fiscal responsibility, no overreach, pro-life, restrictions on labor unions, strict adherence to the national constitution, which leads to all your decision-making. I have an extremely high rating among House members based on my conservative voting record. My votes reflect that I'm a conservative Republican, and the results speak for themselves. Thank you.
Mr. Weathers, would you define conservatism?
Thank you for the question. Conservatism is very critical for the future of our freedom. I believe you've got to, when you talk about being conservative, obviously you want to be conservative. The first thing that comes to my mind is financial. You want to make sure that we don't go to Nashville and try to spend $714 million for something that's not needed. That my opponent did do, okay? We have to be careful that a reporter called me and he said, Mr. Weathers, he said, would you support that bill? And I said, no, I would not. And I said, let me tell you why. Because here in Cleveland, Tennessee, we have to think twice before we spend $500. We have to think and make sure that it's the right decision. I don't want to be the legislator that you send to Nashville that I tell you that I'm conservative and the papers say that I'm not. I'll guarantee you, I don't give many guarantees, but I'll give you this one. I'll assure you, when you read anything about Troy Weathers in Nashville, Tennessee, they'll tell you I'm one of the most conservative representatives in the House. Because I do believe that if you're not conservative, you give things away. And you take things away when you're not supposed to. I want you, as voters, to have the freedom to live the way you want to live. I don't want to govern that. I have no desire to tell you what you have to do and what you don't have to do. I want to make sure that you know that Tennessee is free, and I'm going to be one of the representative that will prove to you that I'm going to protect that and know that you have the freedom to do is what you wish to do. I don't like laws that tell you what you have to do. So I'm going to protect that for as long as I'm in Nashville. Thank you.
All right, this question goes to you, Mr. Weathers. Tennessee is one of only 13 states that tax food. Is now the time to do away with food tax in Tennessee?
Well, thank you for that question. And let me first say, sometimes I have to refer back to things that's happened in the past year for you to understand why I feel the way I feel. I totally 100% agree that the day we can do away with food tax, we need to do that. And also, just so you know, and working on the streets, talking to people, I also think that women's personal items ought to be tax-free also, just so you know, to make sure that we let them know that we care. But let me talk about the food tax. My opponent this year had an opportunity to vote against $144 million that was in the budget that it didn't even have a bill attached to it. And he chose not to take that money, the $144 million, he chose not to take it and put it toward reducing the sales tax. If you'll go look at his website, he'll tell you that that was a priority to him. But this year he voted no. The only way that is a fair reduction in tax, if we take too much tax next year, we ought to give it back in reduction of sales food tax, because everybody benefits. We don't just benefit the haves or the have-nots. Everybody that buys groceries, which is everyone in the room, you have an opportunity to win. You have an opportunity to have a reduced food bill. And I think that's critical. So yes, I support it 100%, and I'll put that in writing. And the opportunity that Mr. Weathers has to vote to reduce that tax, I will be the first one to sponsor the bill. Thank you.
Right. Representative Raper, do you think now is the time to do away with the food tax?
Now, I do. I always think that it's a good time to do away with it. Is it fiscally responsible? I do not think so, and I'll tell you why. When my first year in Nashville, I ran a bill that asked for 2 years instead of one for no grocery tax. I get a call from the governor's office, and they said, we've got good news for you. The governor is proposing 3. I said, fantastic, okay? But you got to know these are non-recurring funds. And the reason why is they knew that we were going to have to, in the near future, have problems balancing the budget. So that some of the non-recurring items that we have, that's how we balance the budget. Now, I want to say this. I'm always, and that was a priority of mine going to Nashville. It still is. And you take some of the states like Florida and Georgia that have removed that, and I think it is fantastic. And with us, without a state sales tax, in addition to that's just that much more wonderful. So.
Representative Raper, this question is for you. The state added more than $250 million to the state's rainy day fund, pushing it above $2.1 billion, the highest in state history. Do you feel that this is the best economic policy to continue to adding to this fund? And is there an amount that you believe is enough?
I don't know if there's an amount that is enough, but I do think it's great policy. And we don't know what's going to happen in the future economically, inflation. When it also, in addition to that, we don't know if a disaster might happen. But I do not think that we should be tapping into our reserves. And here's the reason why. Everybody can find a reason to justify to get a piece of that pie. So once you open that door, then then you're just asking for trouble as far as that's concerned. So I go back and say this is I think that it is great policy. I do not have a figure in mind that would be a cap, and we start looking at this point. So I guess you would say it's like your average everyday person. You're saving for the future and rainy day, and we don't know what the future holds.
Mr. Weathers, same question. The state added more than $250 million to the state's rainy day fund, pushing it above $2.1 billion, the highest in state's history. Do you feel this is the best economic policy to continue to add to this fund? And is there an amount that you believe is enough?
Well, I think it's an excellent question, and this will be one of that I probably agree with my opponent, because in fact I do believe even in our homes today, we need a savings account, we need an investment account so that we know that we can make our bills if something was to happen. If my wife were to be sick or if I was to be sick, we can still survive. That's what that's set up for. They call it a rainy day fund, but it's what we call it as an emergency fund. That's what we call it in our homes. It's called an emergency fund that makes sure that we will have money to pay our bills if something were to happen. Now, being on the school board for 20 years, we also had, you could call a rainy day fund. with the school system. Well, let me tell you, even through the COVID, through 2008, that was when we had a tremendous turn on the economy. Well, we didn't miss one day of school. We didn't miss one person's pay because we had money put aside to protect us from that. So I am an advocate, no, without a doubt, to make sure that we continue to put money in that, because if it's $100 million 20 years ago and it's 200 or 300 million today, the inflation has eat that up already. So I do believe that you got to continue to add to that if you want to make sure that we protect the citizens of Tennessee and also the citizens of Bradley County and Cleveland. I think it's critical that we always think in a positive way to make sure that our folks are taken care of. And we can talk about it. You can talk about, is there a limit, or should we do something else with it? Well, I think that is a security blanket when the day is done to make sure that we are all protected to make whatever takes place. We've got a chance to make sure that we can cover it. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Weathers, this question is for you. Tennessee has recently passed a state transportation bill and increased the gas tax to fund road and infrastructure projects. However, TDOT has said the widening of I-75 between Ooltewah and Cleveland will not start for about 8 more years. This stretch of interstate is very important to our community. What can or will you do as a state legislator to push this project forward?
Well, that's an excellent question because we've talked about it for years. Unfortunately, in this day and time, if you don't have the funds, you just have an item sitting out there waiting to be done. Today, I spoke to our road department, and they told me 10 years ago, a ton of asphalt cost somewhere around $17.50 for a ton. Today, it's over $80. So the problem we face is we are not keeping up with the cost of doing road work. I spoke to one of our huge contractors here in Cleveland that does road work. I spoke to him today, and he said the same thing. He said to put the asphalt down now, it's about $180,000 a mile. So it gets very expensive. So am I in favor of a tax increase? No, I'm not, because I am a conservative Republican. However, we all have to realize if we want our roads fixed, and let me just tell you, let me pause for a moment. We have some of the best roads in the country. And I see heads shaking because if you travel anywhere, you still have to say Tennessee and Cleveland, Tennessee has got some of the best roads there is. However, in order to maintain that, it's going to cost. So is there other avenues that we can do? Sure. But I believe certainly no tax increase. I'm certainly willing as a state representative to look at every possibility for us to continue to make our roads better, safer for our use. And it's just critical because of our infrastructure. We have to make sure. But 75 is a huge expense. And I'd love to see it done tomorrow, but unfortunately, it's like Dalton Pike. We waited forever. When I was a small child, they talked about it. Thank you.
Representative Raper, I don't know if you want me to repeat that entire
Please.
question. Okay, so Tennessee has recently passed a state transportation bill and increased the gas tax to fund road and infrastructure projects. However, TDOT has said the widening of I-75 between Ooltewah and Cleveland will not start for about 8 more years. This stretch of interstate is very important to our community. What can or will you do as a legislator to push this project forward?
Thank you, and that is a good question that obviously they're not just a one given answer, or it would have already been done and thought of. But I want to say this: the transportation bill, when it was formed, it was told and sold to the public as the first thing they're going to do is the toll lane, and that's going to be in the biggest cities in the state of Tennessee. So that was a priority. The next priorities is where we lie, possibly 8 years, and I even have doubts about that at times because transportation bills seem like they take forever. And even though they're moving at a quick pace out in Georgetown, it looks great. It's still a slow project, slow to getting here, and so on. So, do we change our priorities? No, because that's the way the bill was sold. So, what do? Well, we try our best to meet all together and put our heads together and find out a means that we can prioritize and fund some of these other big projects that need to be funded. The last thing is this: the transportation bill basically stopped any increases on gas tax. And gas tax is a depleting amount, and that's how roads were funded before completely. Now, with the transportation bill, it's being funded. But the reason why it is depleting is because we're getting more electric vehicles, and then the tax obviously is not near what it could be.
Microphone on again, sorry. Okay, the bill is for tow roads. And let me just go ahead and tell you, I'm not in favor of tow roads. I can't stand them because it's something you never pay off. It's something that they will collect from you every day of your life if you go through there. And I'd rather you build them with tax money, road tax, whatever you want to, but I do not agree with tow roads. I also believe that we have to think out of the box sometimes, but I'm not willing to pay. See, we're going to have people building roads that it belongs to them, not us. So if we got a problem, if we have problems on the road, who are you going to contact? You won't be able to contact a legislator because that's not a state road. It's a private road. And you'll pay for it and pay for it and pay for it. And if they don't upkeep it, there's nothing we can do. So tow roads are not the way to go, in my opinion. Thank you. I didn't see the light. You'd think I would have as bright as it was.
Do I get rebuttal to that statement? Okay. First of all, I'm not for toll roads, but this was part of this bill, and we were told that it's a 20-year lease that will be paid off. And the next thing is the tolls will go to paying this bill off, and at the end of 20 years, the state owns it, okay? Now, in the meantime, it's more like a lease, and we will still have to encumber the cost of taking care of those. It's not a private company that we'll be going to. It is actually we're still responsible for it because we have a lease. So, thank you.
Okay, Representative Raper, this question is for you. Starting off, many in Tennessee are concerned with the border crisis and the impact it is having here on our local community on resources and infrastructure. What will you do to combat the influx of illegal immigrants to Tennessee?
Well, we've already passed several bills that try to close off our borders. Yeah, the problem becomes what is constitutional, what is allowed by law, and I go back to this. First of all, I think our problem is not just with immigration. That's how America was founded, and I admire anybody that has gone through the correct process. But our problem is with illegal immigration, and I get asked all the time, when it starts infiltrating Tennessee, what are we going to do? It's already here, folks, and you can see numbers of ways. And so what we're trying to do is within the boundaries of what is allowable by not only the Supreme Court, but by the Constitution. We are trying to do everything we can to close off our borders to illegal immigration.
Mr. Weathers, many in Tennessee are concerned with the border crisis and the impact it is having here on our local community and resources and infrastructure. What will you do to combat the influx of illegal immigrants to Tennessee?
Thank you for the question. Well, I would tell you that I'm hoping, and I hope most of the people in this room are, that we have a new president come November. And he has already pledged that he was going to load them on buses, trains, planes, and ship them back where they came from. Now, let me go ahead and tell you, if you send me to Nashville, I'll be opening the door for them. Now, let me tell you why. Because I believe, and I knock on doors. I've knocked on doors that people that came here legal. And they said, Mr. Weathers, we did it the right way, and now these folks are coming over here and they're drawing checks and all these other things that we never had an option to get. And they said, you make sure that if you go to Nashville, you stand up for us. And I'm talking about Hispanics, I'm talking about Korean. Those are the ones who are not happy about it. Unfortunately, we're not saying enough, but they're speaking out because they did it the right way. And let me tell you, I don't believe anybody should be in our country today unless they come legally. And I will be a part of the helping them to leave as soon as you send me to Nashville. Thank you.
All right, the next question was actually directed at both of you. Two different people submitted the question in a different fashion.
Okay.
It's about school lunch.
Mhm.
Okay. So, Mr. Weathers, you have been critical of your opponent's bill and its costs to taxpayers. When you were on the Bradley County School Board, did you support the federal government free lunch program that provided free meals regardless of income? If not, why? If so, please explain why you supported this program since it's also funded by tax dollars.
Very good question. Let me just first tell you, on the school board, when someone gets a grant, they just get a grant. I don't have no support or against it. But this is not a grant, is what my opponent applied for. He wanted to make it the law of the land of Tennessee for us to pay for every child's breakfast and lunch. And let me explain that to you. As I tell folks that I talk to on the door, I have some of those folks here tonight, and they're going to remember exactly what I said. I said, there's no reason why I could support it by today. The federal government, before I'll give you some more information at the end, but the federal government has paid for people who can't afford their lunch since in the 60s, because guess what? You're looking at one of those students that could not afford lunch, and I got a free lunch, okay? Then you got folks that can afford, the students that can't afford their lunch. Their parents make good money, they got education, no issue. The bottom line for me is, I don't mind giving a hand up. I have a problem giving a hand out. Because what that is, that's the Democrat way. They want to grab your hand and hold on to you just as long as they can. And I'm not going to do that. I believe that we have something different going on today. Let me explain. We have a federal grant right now, I better hurry, a federal grant in Cleveland and Bradley County that we're giving free lunch right now to breakfast and lunch for every child. Well, I spoke with one of the cafeteria managers, and this is what's interesting about it, is the cafeteria manager said as of January through this year, they have served less lunch than they ever have. Because last year when kids were paying for it, we were feeding more kids. So the point being, we have, Mr. Raper said he didn't want a child to go hungry. We have kids going hungry today because they won't eat what the Obama and the Democrats want us to eat. Thank you.
Same subject, Representative Raper, but a different question. Representative Raper, you were a sponsor of a bill that would have provided free lunch to all Tennessee public school students. Your opponent has openly criticized the bill and its fiscal note, saying it's an entitlement program and would have cost taxpayers over $700 million. Please explain the intent of the legislation and why you supported it.
Thank you, and great question. And I like to keep things on the positive, but this is one time that I'm just going to say my opponent has misled the public. He has told non-truths about this, and I'm just going to be very frank about it. Number one is this. We have one of the reasons I ran a bill is we have very few ways of refunding tax dollars. This is one way that we can give back to families with children in school. Next thing is this. This bill was never, ever $700 and something million. Okay? We put it on notice to find out what the fiscal note would be, and then we removed it. And why did we remove it? Because we knew a fiscal note like that would never even be considered. So we worked on getting this down. And the next reason that we were looking at running the bill was this, is eyewitness accounts. I saw hungry kids, okay? Next thing is this. We had principals, cafeteria managers, and our cafeteria supervisors in both systems said, we've got a big problem here. We need to run a bill. The next thing is this. The poverty level that the federal government provides right now is very insufficient. It doesn't even get close. We have kids on a daily basis, and I've got testimonies of cafeteria managers saying that we have kids beg, borrowing, stealing every day. I had them come to my classroom hungry, and it's not due to Obama. Okay, it's due to that we're not funding it enough. Okay, and once I conclude, I'm gonna ask for a continuing rebuttal. Okay.
I believe I will. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, go to the website, the Tennessee House of Representatives, look up that bill, and they're going to show you a picture of the back of the bill. It says $714 million. Okay, so I don't, and let me just explain how what my opponent's saying. He's saying, well, we got that down, and we wanted to give it back to the people. Well, he had a chance to give money back to reduce sales tax. Sales tax is the fair way to put money back in your pocket, not free meals to students. That makes no logical sense whatsoever. So him saying that will tell you that that's not practical. And I've heard that before, and yes, I disagree with it. Sales tax is the way everybody benefits. Don't be sending money back to people that don't, that I should share in it, so should you, and so should you. And the day we don't do that, we're in trouble. Thank you.
Yes. Continuing what I was saying is, number one, I just recently, within the last week, talked to both cafeteria managers of our system, and they said the less lunches eaten is not true. They said in both systems there are more people eating now that by the way, this grant that we're on, there are no assurances that it's ever going to be renewed. So the next thing is this. I'm always for the safety, welfare, and health of our kids. And if I err, then I want to err on the side of feeding a hungry child. And I saw them every single day in the classroom. And I had cafeteria managers say, we've got to have something done. This is not cafeteria managers here. They did say that, but it's all around the state of Tennessee. Thank you.
Representative Raper, what is your stance on the Second Amendment, and is Tennessee doing a good job protecting that Second Amendment?
Absolutely. Very good question. I am pro Second Amendment through and through. The next thing is this, is I am proud to stand up here and say that we had a special session last year over anti-gun legislation and red flag laws. And we, as a Republican Party, defeated that. and really the session became sort of null and void. There wasn't much productive that happened at the end of it because the Democrats did not get their way about this. So I am for Second Amendment. You can look at my voting record and see that I vote Second Amendment, and we just recently passed one of the most stringent laws protecting our gun rights in America. So, and I co-sponsored the bill. Thank you.
Mr. Weathers, what is your stance on the Second Amendment, and is Tennessee doing a good job protecting that Second Amendment?
Thank you for the question. And my belief of the Second Amendment is I will stand by it till death. My opponent has not. He can sit up here and tell you great stories, but they're just stories, ladies and gentlemen. He voted against the gun law that we had this year that clearly said that we would have a choice in Cleveland and Bradley County and across the state of Tennessee that if we wanted to arm our teachers, then you could. If you did not, you didn't have to. My opponent was one of the only Republicans that voted no. The rest of the Democrats voted no, and the Republicans voted yes, and it passed. Now, if that's supporting the Second Amendment, I'm in the wrong room. Let me tell you what else it says. It says that teachers, and I've got teachers in here today, that I believe that could carry a gun any day of the week at any school and be safe with it and protect our students. That's what it's about. It's not about me. It's not about Mr. Raper. It's about our students and our teachers. And I'll tell you now, I've met lots of folks that would do that. Now, how do we decide that we want to do it or not do it? That's the decision of our local officials. But there's counties across this state that don't have SROs like we do. But here's an area that he failed to think about: private schools. I had a lady come see me the other day, and a few weeks back, and she said she's at a private school here in Cleveland, and she is grateful that the conservative Republicans voted for that law because now they've got protection. They can have protection for their students, and they deserve protection in that private school just as much as we deserve it in public education. And it's very important that we realize he did not support the Second Amendment when it comes to the gun law for our schools. Thank you.
Okay. So the next question was actually about the bill you're referencing. So we're going to ask Representative Raper that question. This past session, a bill was passed that would allow Tennessee teachers with proper training to carry firearms inside a school. You voted against the bill. Please explain why.
Thank you. First thing is this, there are places around the state of Tennessee and this country that you cannot carry a firearm. A court of law, ball games, college or professional games. There are all kinds of different places. After teaching for numbers of years, I thought the chances of accident were greater than, and the risk were greater than the actual good that the law will do, okay? And I actually talked to an assistant attorney general, and they said, this is not a Second Amendment law, because there are good things about the law. It was totally permissive for anybody to do so in the state. But I finally, after it was all said and done, I listened to city council, I listened to county commissioners, I listened to both school boards, I listened to both directors of schools and law enforcement. They were unanimous in saying, please don't vote for this, okay? And then, in addition to that, I have not had one single person send me something and said, please vote for this, okay? So I did, number one, what I thought was right as a former classroom teacher, and number two is I also did exactly what all the constituents and key stakeholders around this area asked me to do.
So, Mr. Weathers, I think that we know the answer to this question, but because it was a question, we wanted to make sure that we asked both of you, would you have voted for the bill to arm teachers in Tennessee?
I certainly would have. There's no question, because of the fact that we have, and I guess he must be talking about different commissioners, because commissioners I've talked to, they thought it was a great bill. They would never have voted against it. So I'm not sure who is advising him, but let me tell you who advises me: you. And when I come to your house and tell you that I support the Second Amendment, it included that bill. Because I do believe, here's what's alarming: 98% of the shootings are done in zero gun zones. Now, what does that tell you? At the ball field, that's not, folks has got guns in their pocket, don't they? But they don't have it at schools, and they don't have it at other places. Let me tell you, I will support any bill that will stop the zero gun zone, because that's where the 98% of the shootings, that's where it's happening. So why would we not support trying to arm folks? Not everybody. My wife's a school teacher. She doesn't want to carry a gun, okay? But let me tell you, I know there's lots of ex-police officers and other folks, coaches, that would feel very comfortable doing that. Our students deserve that, don't they? Don't they? Our teachers deserve that. And our teacher, someone says, oh, it'd be tragic if a teacher had to shoot somebody coming in their room. You know what I said back to them? It'd be tragic for them to shoot our students. Okay? So, guys, we better grow up and realize that we have an obligation to stop this shootings. And the only way you're going to do that, they're bringing it to you where you don't have guns. So it's a pretty serious issue, and certainly I'm willing to address it. Thank you.
Yes, please. Okay. All right. First of all, I want to correct him. SROs, we have funded SROs for every public school in the state of Tennessee, and we've also given privy to for private schools to actually apply for this. So the ones that have applied, I've heard, is basically about 100% of accepted, as long as you have a certain amount of people. Okay, so do I want more guns in schools? Sure I do, but I want it with officers behind it. I want it with more SROs. The next thing is this, is that I lost my train of thought. Okay, all right, I'll just end right there.
Representative Raper, although the General Assembly did not pass a school voucher bill this legislation session, many believe the issue could return next year. Both of you have stated you are against school vouchers, but please clarify if you are against any voucher program in Tennessee, or if you were simply not in favor of the version proposed during the last session.
Good question. Yes, I was against this one. Why? Because there is very little accountability. I actually called one of the leaders in Nashville and asked him this question. I said, what if you have a situation where you're given $7,000 in vouchers and the school only costs $4,000? I said, so what happens there with the $3,000 difference? And they told me, they said, well, we would hope that they would use it for transportation or meals or whatever. I said, you hope we would? I said, so let me ask you this. Could they go to Disney World on that? And they said, they could if they wanted to. I said, boy, what a terrible accountability when it comes to taxpayer dollars. The next thing is this, and I want to, is people are not understanding that there's a distinguishable difference between school vouchers and school choice. I've been for school choice. We have school choice. I want to enhance it. But the next thing is this. If we're going to have vouchers, that anything that I can consider, it's got to have good safeguards, and it has to have good accountability on it, and so that's where I lie.
Mr. Weathers, although the General Assembly did not pass the school voucher bill this legislative session, many believe the issue could return next year. Both of you have stated you are against school vouchers, but please clarify if you are against any voucher program in Tennessee, or if you were simply not in favor of the version proposed during the last session.
Thank you, and that's a very good question again. Let me first tell you that, yes, I'm against vouchers, the voucher program that they have proposed. I am not going to sit here and tell you that I will be against them a year from now when they have something, if they have something different. But let me tell you what's going to happen. So I don't have a magic ball up here, but let me tell you what I see. Mr. Raper voted against the vouchers, but they put $144 million in the budget, and he voted for the budget. But now let me tell you, in that process, they tried to do an amendment to the bill for that $144 million to come back to you as taxpayers to lower the sales tax on food. And he voted against that. Let me break the news to you. They have the votes in Nashville to pass the vouchers. Let me tell you why. Because they've got $144 million in the budget to pay for it. And there's never a bill, you can write bills on top of bills, but you will never pass one unless you can meet the physical note. And we have folks that's been representatives here that know that. So get ready. In January, my prediction is they'll bring the bill back up. The governor will go through that real quick, and we will be voting on the voucher bill because they have the money. And he had an opportunity to take the money out of the budget, which makes it so much more difficult for that to pass. But he chose to make sure that the money was in there, and the tax break for you and me as citizens of Cleveland, Tennessee never came. So he had that choice. Thank you.
You can definitely tell that we have a former educator and a former school board member running for office. I have one more education question for you both. House Speaker Cameron Sexton and others have suggested that Tennessee reject federal school funding to free schools from federal mandates and rules. Do you support rejecting federal education money? Mr. Weathers, you go first.
Well, thank you for that question. Now, let me tell you the reality of refusing funds from the federal government. Do you want your taxes to go up? Because if you don't take that money, somebody's got to pay for it. Now, do you know what the federal funds pay for? Special needs. Do you know what the most expensive thing we do in education? Special needs. So if we, as taxpayers of Tennessee, agree to that, then that's okay. But that is a tax increase. Now, I like the speaker. I think he's a great guy, but I'm not sure that's a smart move financially. Now, I don't know how involved, because I've never done, I was on the board, but I didn't deal with special ed funding. And that, again, they do Title I funding. So there's lots of things in education that the federal government funds. But if they are not funding it, that means we locally will be funding it. So that means that your county commission will have to raise your taxes. So at this point, I am not in favor of telling the federal government to go fly a kite, because that means that we will have to give up more income than we have. And let me tell you now, guys, we struggle already. We're struggling through this already. How in the world can we afford that tax increase? Because that'll be substantial. So, but we have people in Nashville that don't think about how we live. They just think about how they live. And maybe that won't bother them. But $10,000 or $15,000, $20,000 changes the way some of us live. So I think it's critical that we look at the issues and make sure that we just don't jump to make a decision, that we know how it's going to affect us. When I make decisions, you send me to Nashville, I look down the road and see how it's going to affect each one of us before I say yes or no. Thank you.
Representative Raper, do you support rejecting federal money to free schools in Tennessee from federal mandates and rules?
On this one, I do agree with my opponent. I agree with his argument. And the only thing I'll even add to it is the fact of this is I would like the icing without the cake. And here's what that means is I would love to be free of the mandates and regulations of the federal government, but it doesn't go both ways. So I'm in complete agreement. We can't afford this. This is not something that we can afford in Nashville. And where's the cost going to be passed down? My opponent said to the locals, and that's exactly correct. So no, I can't support this.
Thank you. Representative Raper, should the Covenant School Shooters Manifesto be released to the public?
Absolutely, and I've heard reasons that it was not, and just to be honest with you, I didn't go with any of the logic. To me, we have lawyers that are much more prone to answer that type of question in Nashville, and every single one of the Republican lawyers that I talked to said, release the manifesto. So here's what it says to me. They're hiding something. And I've heard, and I'm not going to pass along rumors of the different things that they're hiding, but it appears that they're hiding something. And when I say they, I'm talking about those that can release a manifesto. So, yes, I think it should be released already, and if not, in the next 2 minutes. So, yes.
Mr. Weathers, should the Covenant School Shooters Manifesto be released to the public?
Absolutely. They should be. My phone just told me it was 22 p.m. Is it not amazing what technology does? Yes, I think they should release it, and I agree. There's something to that story. Now, I have heard rumors as of Mr. Raper, and they're not good rumors. And they don't want you as the public to know because it will change how you feel about what happened at that school. Again, remember though, it was a what? A zero gun zone. That's why my argument has been we got to make sure that we've got to do something about those zones to protect our students and our families and our teachers. And that's what happened up there. And we are in the same boat, ladies and gentlemen. Same thing could happen right here in Cleveland, Tennessee. And that worries me. So as your legislator, I assure you, I will constantly stay after and find out how we can better improve the enforcement and possibilities of getting the zero zone gun zone not zero anymore. 5%, 10%, 20%. I'm not sure what the number is, but we've got to do something to change that. And if we don't, more people will die. And that is a Second Amendment, by the way. We should be able to do something, and we're not. We're sitting on our hands, and we're letting our students and our teachers be killed. And that's awful harsh. I know you think that, but it's true. Guys, I mean, we can't butter it, sweeten it up any more than what it is. We've got to do something about it. And I think they should release all the information. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Weathers, this question is for you. If you lose this election, will you support the Republican nominee in the general election against their Democratic opponent?
Yes, I will. Because let me tell you something. If I challenge you to listen to the chamber speech that we made the other day, last Thursday. Go on the website and find it and listen to it. We have a Democrat person running that is as liberal as I think I've ever imagined. And that's what they're trying to do. They want to change us. I'm going to fight that they can't. And I'm just telling you, the other night I was very disturbed over the things that she said, the boldness that she had. So I don't know if you know the first things that came out of my mouth is I stood up and I said she bashed the Republicans, said that we didn't care about the poor, we didn't care about women. I mean, really? And my comment when I stood up is I am a conservative Republican, and I'm proud of it. Because I want her to know that if I'm in the general, she's going to have a fight. Okay? I'm not going to take it. Because I'm telling you, the way we live and what we have people here tonight that believes that we should keep what we have. And we shouldn't change and we shouldn't bend for other people. We should live the way we want to live as a Republican and as conservative. And I'm just telling you, that lady is nowhere close. So yes, I will support anyone that wins. I will back them and I will give speeches, just so you know, because I do believe that they're trying to take over the Democrats. And we can't let that happen here, nor can we let it happen in Nashville. Because if it happens, we will see the difference quickly. And that's all it takes is one, ladies and gentlemen, one move in the wrong direction, and we're headed that way. Thank you.
Representative Raper, if you lose this election, will you support the Republican nominee in the general election against the Democratic opponent?
I've got a brief answer. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Representative Raper, what do you think is the biggest difference between you and your opponent?
I hesitate because I don't want to be extremely negative, but he has. I live on honesty and integrity, and when it comes to the things that he has said, they're very misleading to the public and lacking in honesty at times. So I think that's the biggest difference about the things that we're saying.
Okay, Mr. Weathers, what do you think is the biggest difference between you and your opponent?
Well, the biggest difference would be that I am a conservative Republican. And I don't know if you're aware, everything I've said, I can send you videos to prove exactly what I said was true. You can get online and see the bills that Mr. Raper has supported that you would not support, I promise you. There's a paper in Nashville. So let's just tell the truth here. Okay, let's be honest. My credibility means more to me than anything at any race. My integrity for my family. Okay, so when you want to question my integrity, then I can get down with you if you want to. But let me tell you about the Tennessee Conservative paper in Nashville, Tennessee. I don't own it. Let me first say that. I don't own it. But they wrote in their paper, they did an evaluation on all the incumbents that has someone running against them. And they said Mr. Raper voted 33% of the time Democrat. That's what they said. It's in the paper. Please I want you to go look. And I want you to look at all the bills that he voted for that was not a conservative Republican vote. Now, I didn't say that. They wrote it in the paper. Now, here's a thing that I didn't know. Do you know what a rhino is? I didn't, okay? Gosh, am I not innocent? The lady's looking at me like, you didn't know that, Mr. Weathers? I didn't know what that meant. But I do now. It means that someone is saying they're Republican and they're voting Democrat. Well, the proof in the pudding is, ladies and gentlemen, the Tennessee Conservative News.com. That's where you need to go look. And they'll show you that there's 7 legislators in the state of Tennessee in the House that is voting like Democrats. So I can tell you, if I'm there, you won't have to worry about that. Thank you.
Okay. Representative Raper, We're going to go ahead and allow you to ask your questions of one another. And those were prepared questions that the moderators did review before the debate. So if you would like to ask Mr. Weathers your question.
Sure. You have stated that you would have supported and voted for the arming of teachers bill, and you also stated again tonight, you have also said you will listen to the concerns of people. One of the reasons I chose to not support the bill was because I was listening to city council, county commissioners, both school boards, both directors of schools, law enforcement, and numerous citizens. Based on that information, how would you have voted, and why?
May I respond?
Yes, it's a question to you.
And this is probably out of the norm, so if it is, I'm going to do it anyway. How's that? Would you raise your hand if you believe we should have passed that bill? Okay, Mr. Raper, I believe that's not the majority. That's not everybody, but I'm just telling you, these folks believe also that we should be arming people, and we were going to arm people that had qualifications. They could be a police officer. And that was the whole idea. All I care about, we can talk politics all day long, ladies and gentlemen, but I care about the kids. And I care about that teacher in that classroom that's scared to death and hearing gunfire. And those kids are sitting there crying, and she's trying to keep them calm, and she's there ready to protect those kids. Now, if it's your kid, would you not be glad she had a gun? Would you not be glad that she took the time to work, go get the because I don't want to be tested psychologically, just so you know, okay? But they had to have all these tests in order to make sure that they can handle the responsibility. It's worth it, ladies and gentlemen, to give our people a chance and not to have, again, I hate to keep repeating it, but we cannot allow gun-free zones to continue to live out there, and people know it. If they know you've got guns, guess what? They're not coming. They're not coming to shoot up your school. Because if they think, man, alive, Nikki Weathers has got a gun in the library, I'm going to stay away from there. Because they don't tell who she'd shoot, okay? That's my wife, by the way. But still, guys, we can laugh about it, but it's important that I still support it, and I would support it if you send me to Nashville. Any way we can save lives, I'm in favor of. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Weathers, you have a prepared question you would like to ask Representative Raper.
Okay, Mr. Raper, you passed a bill, the finance bill. We talked about this a little bit. The finance bill where it had $144 million in it that was budgeted for the vouchers. Well, the vouchers bill died, and you had an opportunity to take that money. As we say, we want to distribute the money. The only fair way to do that, as we've talked about, is doing it through sales tax on food. And it was brought to the floor to change and move that $144 million out of the budget, and you voted not to move it, to continue to let the voucher money stay in there. Now, I can assume, and probably assume it's not real good, but I assume that so that you guys can pass it when you go back, if you get to go back, so you could pass it, the voucher bill, because you've got the money. So I don't understand why you did not support moving the money over to reduce our taxes on our food that you have said tonight, and you've said on your website that you support 100% and you'd like for it to be gone, but you made no effort to do that. So what's your response, sir?
Can I speak?
Absolutely.
First thing is this, the budget was passed before the voucher bill was decided upon. We had to have a balanced budget. Our budget consists of numbers and numbers of revenues and expenditures. I was not going in favor of going back and taking away all the good things in the budget over one issue. and you can take any time that we have. When I served on the county commission, from there to also the state of Tennessee, there are many, many times that I am not supportive of different line items in the budget. But the budget as a whole, I was very supportive of, and that's how my final decision came. And it once again, the budget was before the voucher bill ever, so we had to have a balanced budget. That's.
Thank you. We're now moving on to closing statements. And
Do I have one rebuttal left?
you have one rebuttal.
May I use that, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Well, I believe if you were against the vouchers, you could have still supported pulling the money out. Now, that doesn't kill the whole budget. Never has, never will. I also want you to know that obviously, he's made several comments about taxes. Well, he has, in Bradley County, he sat up right here in these chairs, and he raised your taxes. We haven't said anything about that tonight, but let me tell you, I've never raised taxes. My opponent raised taxes for you here in Bradley County before he went to Nashville. And he says in some of his comments here, I will not raise your taxes, and I haven't raised any taxes in 2020. Well, I don't believe we've asked for a tax increase from Nashville. I don't believe they're going to either, by the way. So did he defend us there? But let me tell you something. When you're going to spend $700 million that we don't have, somebody's going to pay for it. Thank you.
All right. We're going to start our closing statements. Representative Raper, you won the coin toss, so you will start. You have 2 minutes.
We are number one in the nation for fiscal responsibility, and with a large rainy day fund. We removed the state franchise tax. With tax cuts, the family saved over $400 million during the tax freeze on groceries and school supplies. We have had the 2 largest tax cuts ever in state history. I'm not talking about leveling the same. I'm not talking about tax increases. I'm talking about, next thing is this, is we have tax cuts for both of my years that I have been in office. We have protected babies with pro-life legislation. We voted against all gender-altering treatments under the age of 18. Voted to not allow critical race theory. Voted to protect girls' sports by ensuring to compete against your same-sex biological gender. We have multiple bills on illegal immigration passed, and many of these I co-sponsored. And the last thing I want to say is, before I give my final closing statement, is this: he alluded to me raising taxes. When he was on the school board, he supported every single tax increase that came about year after year, okay? And didn't mention that one. The last thing I want to say is this. If you want to continue to have high conservative standard representing you in Nashville, then vote for Kevin Raper. Thanks for your attendance tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Weathers, your closing statement.
Thank you. And again, thank you for being here and listening to the issues. If you're satisfied with my opponent voting 33% Democrat ticket, then it's okay. But I can't do that. If you send me to Nashville, I won't be doing that. I'm going to be representing what you believe as a Republican, not as a Democrat. I think it's critical that has to be your commitment to who you are. I have friends that were former representatives. Mr. Mark Hall, Kevin Brooks. Mark Hall, if I remember correctly, he was voted one of the top 3 or 4 conservative Republicans in Nashville when he was there. Same thing with Kevin Brooks. So I want us to go back to being conservative in Nashville. We were known for that, by the way. We're not now, but we were then. Because they said, I went to Nashville 2 years ago and visited, and they said, you live in the most conservative town and the most voter that's registered as Republican in the state of Tennessee. Well, today they're not saying that, ladies and gentlemen. I can tell you that if you send me, I will be the conservative that we're used to having, that will not be voting with Democrats. We'll be fighting for your freedom, for your ability to live and survive, and no taxes. Let me say it again. I never asked for a tax increase. I never voted for a tax increase. Well, did I ask for one? Well, let me tell you, the roles that you play in life. I was on the school board for 20 years. We had to have schools for your children. My responsibility as being voted as an official, my responsibility was to say, please help us. Our kids need it. So that's the difference. And do I appreciate they did it? Yes, but I can only tell you, they're telling me to cut off. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. I want to thank both of you for participating in this debate and appreciate both of you being very respectful of all of the rules. I also want to thank the Bradley County Republican Party for helping with this event, and also our partners at WCLE for live streaming the event. Thank you so much, and good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin.